It was really about like that compounding power of small, consistent actions over time.
Yeah, he really emphasizes that.
Yes.
Like those little things
Well, yeah.
really add up.
That was really the beauty of like his approach. It breaks it down into these like manageable chunks.
Right.
And shows you how to kind of leverage those small, consistent actions to create lasting change. You know?
Yeah.
And it's not about being perfect all the time. It's just about showing up.
Right.
And making those
All right. Welcome to your Deep Dive. You ready to dive into habits today?
always ready to talk habits.
Yeah, me too. Especially with this book, Atomic Habits. This is by James Clear.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those books that I feel like everybody kind of recommends when I talk about habits. So I thought it'd be good to kind of dig into it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, I mean, like, what really resonated with you when you first like went through this?
I think for me, it was that it wasn't about like those huge, like overnight transformations.
Yeah.
It was really about like that compounding power of small, consistent actions over time.
Yeah, he really emphasizes that.
Yes.
Like those little things.
Well, yeah.
Really add up.
That was really the beauty of like his approach. It breaks it down into these like manageable chunks.
Right.
And shows you how to kind of leverage those small, consistent actions to create lasting change. You know?
Yeah.
And it's not about being perfect all the time. It's just about showing up.
Right.
And making those small improvements day after day.
Well, and that's why like the whole like atomic habit thing, I think like really is important for people to grasp. It's like,
Yeah.
you're not trying to change everything overnight. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, 1% better each day. And then over time, like that compound.
Yeah.
It's got like a whole section in here about like, you know, basically how it's like compound interest
Yeah.
for your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it's like those small improvements, they might not seem like much in the moment.
Right.
But over time, they can have a really like profound impact on your life.
Well, and he really like digs into that in a way that I feel like a lot of other people don't. You know, a lot of people will just be like, oh, just do it every day.
Yeah.
But he like actually has like charts and stuff that shows you like, this is how this works.
Yeah.
Right?
No, he really emphasizes the importance of like the long game, you know?
Yeah.
It's about playing the long game and being patient with yourself
Yeah.
and trusting that those small efforts will eventually pay off.
Right.
And I think that's something that's really important to remember in today's world.
Yeah.
Where everything is so instant.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone wants like that quick fix, that hack.
Right.
That like, you know.
Yeah, there's no magic bullet.
Yeah. Do this one thing and your life will be perfect.
Exactly. It's about consistency.
Right.
It's about showing up day after day and putting in the work.
Right.
And trusting the process.
Well, and he like gives you the tools, which I think is really helpful.
Yes, absolutely.
Like he's not just saying like, hey, this is what you should be doing. He's like, here are the actual like steps to make it happen.
Yeah.
Which I think is something that a lot of books don't do.
No, he's very, very practical in his approach. You know, he gives you a framework, he gives you strategies, he gives you examples.
Right.
He really walks you through the process step by step.
Yeah.
And he makes it very clear and easy to understand.
Well, let's talk about that framework then, the 4 laws.
Yes, the 4 laws.
Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. That's his kind of like his cheat sheet, as he calls it.
Yeah.
To building habits.
Yeah, and they're incredibly effective.
Yeah.
You know, I've used them myself, and I'm seeing like amazing results.
Yeah.
And I've also seen them work for countless other people.
Well, and it's simple. I mean, like,
Yeah.
you know, anyone can grasp, like, make it obvious. What does that mean? You know,
No way.
like,
Yeah.
it's not super complicated.
And I think that's what makes it so powerful.
Yeah.
You know?
So let's kind of go through those like one by one.
Okay.
So make it obvious. I mean, like, that seems pretty self-explanatory, but
Yeah.
what are some of the things that, like, you know, he digs into there?
Well, I think the biggest thing with making it obvious is really about like creating a clear cue for your habit.
Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of times we have these vague intentions like I want to exercise more or I want to eat healthier.
Right.
But we don't create a specific plan for when and where we're going to do those things.
Right.
So it's like, you know, if you want to start running in the morning, you need to like set out your running clothes the night before.
Yeah.
Put your shoes by the door, you know, like make it really obvious what you need to do.
And that's where like the whole habit stacking comes into play, right?
Yes. Habit stacking is a great technique.
Yeah.
It's basically like linking a new habit to an existing one.
Yeah. Like, when I make my coffee in the morning, I always
Yeah.
take my vitamins.
Right.
Because like that's the time that I'm like,
Yeah.
it's already there.
Exactly. You're already doing something, so you're just adding a new habit on top of it.
Yeah.
And that makes it much more likely that you'll actually do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, what are some other examples, of like habit stacking that people could do?
Well, let's see. So after you brush your teeth, you could do a quick 5-minute meditation.
Right.
Or after you eat lunch, you could take this right walk.
Yeah.
It's really about like finding those existing habits that you already do consistently.
Yeah.
And then just adding a new habit on top of it.
And I think that's a really like powerful concept because people try to change too much at once. It's like,
Exactly.
I'm gonna, start waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm gonna work out every single day.
Right.
I'm gonna like eat perfect.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't do all.
Too much. Yeah, it's too much.
You start with like one little thing.
Yeah.
And then build on that.
Yeah, exactly. Start small.
Yeah.
Build momentum.
Now, you mentioned like environment too. So
Yes.
make it obvious also can relate to like your physical environment, right?
Absolutely. Your environment plays a huge role in habit formation.
Right.
Our surroundings are constantly bombarding us with cues that can either support or sabotage our habits.
Right.
So it's important to create an environment that makes it easy to do the things you want to do
Yeah.
and harder to do the things you don't want to do.
Well, like, if you're trying to eat healthy, don't keep like
Right.
a bowl of candy on your desk.
Exactly. Get rid of the junk food in your house.
Yeah.
Make it less accessible.
Right. Like move the fruit
Yeah.
to eye level in your refrigerator.
Exactly. Make the healthy choices more visible and accessible.
Yeah.
If you want to read more, put a book on your bedside table.
Yeah.
If you want to play the guitar more, leave your guitar out in the living room.
Yeah. Instead of like
Yeah,
in the case.
exactly. It's really about like setting up your environment to support your goals.
Right. Okay. So that's make it obvious.
Yeah.
So, we've got to create that cue. We've got to like make it easy to like actually see it and do it.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to like make it attractive.
Okay. Make it attractive.
So this is all about motivation, right?
Absolutely. Habits are more likely to stick when they're associated with positive feelings.
Yeah.
So we need to find ways to make our habits enjoyable.
Well, and that's where he like talks about like dopamine and
Yes.
how our brains are wired to like seek pleasure.
Right. Our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain.
So like how do we use that to our advantage then?
Well, there's a few things we can do. One thing is to like find ways to make our habits intrinsically rewarding.
Okay.
So, if you enjoy running, then running is already intrinsically rewarding.
Right.
But if you don't enjoy running, then you might need to find ways to make it more enjoyable.
Okay. So like
Yeah.
listen to music while you run.
Exactly. Or run with a friend.
Right.
Or run in a beautiful location. There's lots of ways to make it more enjoyable.
Right.
Another thing is to use like extrinsic rewards. So, if you're trying to stick to a diet,
Yeah.
you might reward yourself with a new outfit or a massage after you've lost a certain amount of weight.
Right.
And then another technique that James Clear talks about is temptation bundling.
Okay, temptation bundling. Now, this is one that I've heard a lot about.
Yeah.
But I feel like people kind of misunderstand. So what is that actually?
Temptation bundling is basically pairing an action you want to do with something you need to do.
Okay.
So, for example, let's say you love watching Netflix,
Yeah.
but you hate folding laundry.
Right.
Well, you could bundle those two activities together.
Okay.
So only allow yourself to watch Netflix while you're folding laundry.
Okay.
And that way, you're making the activity you need to do more attractive.
Right, because now you're like looking forward to folding the laundry.
Exactly. It's no longer this chore that you dread.
So what are some like other examples of that, like in real life that people are actually doing?
Well, let's see. So maybe you only allow yourself to listen to your favorite podcast while you're working out.
Okay.
Or maybe you only allow yourself to get a pedicure while you're catching up on work emails.
Okay, so it's like things that like you already enjoy, but like kind of using it as like a little bit of leverage
Yeah,
to
exactly.
get the things done that you're not super excited about doing.
Right. It's about making the things you need to do more enjoyable.
Okay, so we've made it obvious, we've made it attractive.
Yes.
Now we've got to make it easy.
Okay. Make it easy.
Which, I mean, ISO is a really important one because
Yeah.
like if it's too hard, you're not going to do it.
Exactly. One of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to build new habits is setting the bar too high.
Yeah,
They try to do too much too soon.
right.
and then they get overwhelmed and they get up.
Like back to that, like changing everything at once.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's important to start small.
Yeah.
Break your habit down into tiny, manageable actions.
And that's where his like 2-minute rule comes into play.
Yes. The 2-minute rule is great.
Yeah.
It's basically saying that you should be able to start your new habit in 2 minutes or less.
Oh, okay.
So, if you want to start meditating, you don't have to meditate for 30 minutes right away. You could just start with 2 minutes.
Okay.
If you want to start writing a book, you don't have to write a chapter a day.
Yeah.
You could just start with writing 1 sentence a day.
So it's about establishing like that neural pathway.
Exactly.
And then you can build on that over time.
Exactly. You're just trying to create the habit loop.
Right.
And once you've created the habit loop, then you can start to gradually increase the duration or the intensity of the habit.
So, I mean, like, what are some other things then that make it easier? I mean, like, we talked about environment, but like, are there any other tips that he gives there?
Well, another tip is to remove friction.
Okay.
So, if you want to work out in the morning,
Yeah.
make sure your gym clothes are laid out the night before.
Right.
Make sure your gym bag is packed. Make sure you know exactly what workout you're going to do.
Yeah.
Remove all the obstacles that might prevent you from working out.
And I think that's really key because it's like when you're tired in the morning, you're just looking for any excuse.
Yes, exactly. You're looking for any excuse to not do it.
Yeah, to not do it. So if you've already eliminated all those excuses the night before,
Right.
It's like, well, I guess I'll just go do it now.
Yeah, it's like, well, I might as well.
Yeah. Okay, so we made it easy.
Yes.
Last one, make it satisfying.
Make it satisfying.
So this is about the reward.
Yeah, this is all about reward. We're more likely to repeat behaviors that feel good.
Right.
So we need to find ways to make our habits satisfying.
Now, does he recommend like actual like rewards? Like
He does.
if you do this, then you get to, watch a movie or...
Yeah, he talks about like using rewards strategically.
Okay.
So, if you're trying to build a habit of working out,
Yeah.
you might reward yourself with a new workout outfit or a massage after you've worked out consistently for a month.
Okay.
But he also talks about like the importance of intrinsic rewards.
Okay.
So, the feeling of accomplishment you get after completing a workout.
Right.
Or the feeling of pride you get after writing a blog post.
Yeah.
Those are all intrinsic rewards.
So, and those are actually more powerful
They are, yeah.
than those like external rewards, right?
Yeah, they are more powerful because they're more sustainable.
Right.
You can't rely on external rewards forever.
Right. You're going to run out of rewards eventually.
Exactly. But those intrinsic rewards, they're always there.
Well, and I think like a lot of times it's just like taking a moment to like appreciate what you've done.
Yes, exactly.
Like after you finish a workout,
Yeah.
just like stand there for a second and be like, yeah, I did that.
Right. Be proud of yourself.
Yeah.
Acknowledge your accomplishment.
Which can be hard for a lot of people.
It can. Yeah.
I know. Like personally, like
Yeah.
I'm always just on to the next thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
okay, done that. Now what?
Right.
So it's like really taking that moment to be like, no, I accomplished something.
Yeah, it's important to celebrate your wins no matter how small.
Yeah.
Those small wins, they
Yeah.
build momentum.
Yeah.
They keep you motivated.
Well, and one of the things that he like talks about is like tracking, right?
Yes, tracking is a great way to make it satisfying.
Yeah.
When you track your progress,
Yeah.
you can see how far you've come.
Yeah.
And that could be really motivating.
Well, and it's tangible too.
Yeah.
It's not just like this feeling in your head.
Exactly. It's something you can see and touch.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder of your progress.
Yeah. So, whether it's like an app or like a habit tracker or even just like
Yeah.
marking it on a calendar
Yeah.
or whatever, like find a way to like
Yeah,
make it visible.
exactly. Find a way to make it visual,
Yeah.
because that will help you stay motivated and on track.
Right. So, okay, so those are the 4 laws.
Yeah.
I mean, we could probably talk for hours just about that.
Yeah.
But like what are some of the other things from this book that like really stand out to you?
Well, one thing that really stands out to me is the concept of identity-based habits.
Okay, identity-based habits. What is that?
So basically, James Clear argues that true behavior change starts with shifting your self-perception.
Okay.
So, if you want to quit smoking, don't just focus on not smoking.
Okay.
Focus on becoming a non-smoker.
Okay.
If you want to lose weight,
Yeah.
don't just focus on losing weight. Focus on becoming a healthy person.
So it's like the identity shift first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the behaviors kind of follow from that.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about changing your beliefs about yourself.
Right.
And once you change your beliefs about yourself, then your actions will start to align with those beliefs.
Okay.
So it's really about like, who do you want to be?
Right.
And then start acting like that person.
And I think like that's something that's really powerful because like so many people are focused on like what they want to achieve. And it's like, well, maybe if you focused on who you wanted to be,
right,
you would actually like achieve those things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it's about like aligning your actions with your desired identity.
Right.
And when your habits are rooted in your identity,
yeah,
they become an expression of who you are.
Right.
Not just something you're forcing yourself to do.
Yeah.
So it becomes more natural, more effortless.
I love that. Okay, so we've got identity-based habits.
Yes.
What else? What else is in here?
Well, he also talks about the habit loop.
Okay.
And the habit loop is basically a 4-step process that all habits go through.
Okay.
So it starts with a cue.
Okay.
Which triggers a craving.
Okay.
Which leads to a response.
Okay.
Which results in a reward.
Okay, so it's a cycle.
Yeah, it's a cycle. And the more times you go through this cycle,
yeah,
the stronger the habit becomes.
Okay, so give me an example, like a real world example of this.
Okay, so let's say you have a habit of biting your nails.
Okay.
So the cue might be feeling stressed or anxious.
Okay.
The craving might be the desire to relieve that stress or anxiety.
Okay.
The response is biting your nails.
Right.
And the reward is the temporary relief of stress or anxiety.
Right.
So, you know, you feel stressed, you crave relief, you bite your nails, you feel a little bit better.
Okay, so like the key then is to like break that cycle.
Exactly. You need to find ways to disrupt that loop.
Okay.
So, you know, if you're aware of your triggers,
yeah,
you can start to develop alternative coping mechanisms.
Right.
So instead of biting your nails when you're stressed,
yeah,
maybe you could try taking some deep breaths.
Right.
Or going for a walk.
Right.
Or listening to some music.
So find like a healthier way to
exactly
deal with that, like that craving.
Yeah, find a healthier way to deal with the craving.
Okay.
You can also try to make the response more difficult.
Okay.
So, you know, if you're a nail biter,
yeah,
maybe you could wear gloves.
Right.
Or get a manicure.
Yeah.
Or put some bitter tasting nail polish on your nails.
So it's like creating like that little bit of like friction.
Exactly. Yeah, you're creating friction.
To make it like a little bit harder to do the thing that you don't want to do.
Exactly. And then you can also try to weaken the reward.
Okay.
So, you know, if you're aware that biting your nails is only providing you with temporary relief.
Right.
Then you can start to focus on the negative consequences of biting your nails.
Right.
Like, you know, it's unhygienic.
Yeah.
It can damage your nails.
Yeah.
It can make you look unprofessional.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a bunch of different things that you can do to kind of play with that habit loop.
Yeah, you can manipulate the habit loop to your advantage.
Okay, so we've got the 4 laws, we've got identity-based habits, we've got the habit loop.
Yeah.
What else is in here?
Well, he also talks about the importance of environment design.
Okay. So, I mean, we kind of touched on that a little bit, but like what specifically does he say about that?
So basically, he says that your environment is constantly shaping your behavior,
right,
whether you realize it or not.
Right.
So, you know, if you're trying to eat healthier, but your kitchen is full of junk food,
right,
it's going to be really hard to resist temptation.
Right.
But if you get rid of the junk food and stock your kitchen with healthy food, it's going to be much easier to make healthy choices.
So it's like the things that you surround yourself with, whether that's like people or like food or, you know, whatever. Like,
it could be anything.
It's like it's all going to have an impact on your behavior.
Exactly. Your environment is constantly sending you cues.
Right.
And those cues are either triggering good habits or bad habits.
So if you can control the cues, then you can
you can control your habits.
Yeah, you can control your behavior.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got environment design.
What else?
Well, he also talks about the plateau of latent potential.
Okay, the plateau of latent potential. What's that?
So basically, the plateau of latent potential is this period of time where you're putting in the work.
Yeah.
But you're not seeing any results.
Okay.
So, you know, you might be working out consistently, eating healthy, but you're not losing any weight.
Right.
Or you might be writing every day.
Yeah.
But you're not getting any better at writing.
Right. And this could be really discouraging.
Right. So how do you like push past that?
Well, the important thing to remember is that this is a normal part of the process.
Okay.
You know, it's like planting a seed.
Yeah.
You don't see the sprout right away.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it's not growing beneath the surface.
And so this plateau, this like, is just like a natural part of the process.
Yeah, it's a natural part of the process.
It's not like you're doing something wrong.
No, you're not doing anything wrong. You just need to keep going.
And trust that those small, consistent actions are accumulating.
Exactly. You just need to trust the process.
Now, I know, like, for a lot of people, that's really hard.
It is.
Like,
yeah.
especially if you're used to, like, instant gratification.
Right.
You know, like, I want to do this and I want to see the results right now.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of, like, reframe that in your mind?
Well, I think it's important to focus on the process.
Okay.
Not the outcome.
Okay.
So, if you're focused on losing weight,
Yeah.
don't just focus on the number on the scale.
Okay.
Focus on eating healthy
Yeah.
and working out consistently.
So it's like almost detached from the outcome.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Because the outcome is not always in your control.
Right.
But the process is.
Right. So you can control what you eat.
Yeah,
You can control how much you exercise.
exactly. You can control what you do.
You can't always control the number on the scale.
Right. So focus on what you can control.
Okay.
And trust that the results will eventually come. It's amazing, isn't it?
What's that?
How those tiny little actions repeated over time
Oh, you're
can lead to some really remarkable transformations.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's like, the analogy they always use is like the rudder of a ship.
Right.
A tiny little shift
Yeah.
in direction can lead to a vastly different destination.
Right. Well, and that's the whole concept of atomic habits, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like those small incremental
Yeah.
adjustments that over time
Yeah.
really add up.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that's so appealing about this approach.
Yeah.
It's not about making these drastic changes overnight.
Right.
It's about being patient with yourself.
Yeah.
Trusting the process.
Yeah.
And just making those small, consistent improvements day after day.
Well, and that brings us back to one of the concepts that we talked about earlier, which are the identity-based habits.
Yes. Identity-based habits.
I feel like that's such a key part of this.
They are. They're really powerful.
Yeah.
And I think, it's like shifting your focus from what you want to achieve to who you want to become.
Right.
It's like instead of setting a goal to lose weight,
Yeah.
you might focus on becoming a healthy person.
Right.
Instead of aiming to write a book,
Yeah.
you might focus on becoming a writer.
So it's almost like the identity shift
Yes.
first, and
Yeah.
then the behaviors kind of follow from that.
Exactly. It's about aligning your actions with your desired identity.
Right.
And when your habits are rooted in your identity,
Yeah.
they become an expression of who you are.
Right.
Not just something you're forcing yourself to do.
And I think that's a really subtle but really important distinction.
It is, yeah.
Because it's like if you think of yourself as a healthy person,
Right.
then you're more likely to make healthy choices.
Exactly.
If you think of yourself as a writer, you're more likely to write.
Exactly. Yeah, it becomes more natural, more effortless.
It's not even a question,
Right. Yeah.
It's just this is who I am, so this is what I do.
Exactly.
So how do we cultivate more of those identity-based habits?
Well, I think it starts with really being honest with yourself about who you want to be.
Okay.
What are your values? What are your aspirations?
Right.
And then, once you have a clear sense of that, you can start to identify the habits that will support that identity.
Okay.
So, if you want to be a healthy person, you might start by incorporating small, healthy habits into your daily routine.
Okay. So what would be an example of that?
Well, maybe instead of taking the elevator, you take the stairs.
Okay.
Or maybe instead of having a sugary drink, you have a glass of water.
Okay.
Or maybe instead of eating fast food for lunch,
Yeah.
you pack a healthy lunch from home.
So it's little tiny changes.
Yeah, little tiny changes.
That over time will
that will
add up to create that healthy person identity.
Exactly. And as you start to embody those habits,
Yeah.
you'll start to see yourself differently.
Okay.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've talked about identity-based habits, but let's go back to that habit loop for a second.
Okay.
Because I think this is something that we can really use to our advantage.
Absolutely.
If we understand it.
Yeah, the habit loop is a powerful tool.
Yeah. So remind us again, what are the 4 stages of that loop?
Okay, so the 4 stages are the cue, the craving, the response, and the reward.
And we talked about how this cycles through. So
it's a cycle.
the cue triggers the craving.
Yeah.
The craving triggers the response.
Yeah.
The response
Leads to the reward.
leads to the reward, which then reinforces the whole thing.
Exactly.
And the more time you go through that loop,
Yeah.
the stronger that habit becomes.
Exactly. And that's why understanding the habit loop is so important.
Okay.
Once we understand how it works, we can start to consciously influence it.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, if we want to build a good habit, we need to make sure each stage of the loop is working in our favor.
Okay.
So, for example, let's say you want to build a habit of meditating every morning.
Okay, yeah.
So first, you need a clear cue that triggers the habit.
Okay, so the cue is like the starting pistol.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe it's setting your alarm for 15 minutes earlier than usual.
Okay.
Or maybe it's placing your meditation cushion in a visible spot.
So it's like something that like when you see it
Yeah.
or hear it, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, it's time to meditate.
Exactly. And then you need to create a craving that makes you actually want to meditate.
Okay, so how do you create a craving?
Well, maybe you focus on the benefits of meditation,
Okay.
like, reducing stress or improving focus.
So it's like thinking about the positive outcomes.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Or maybe you find a guided meditation that you really enjoy.
Right.
Something that makes you look forward to meditating.
So it's got to be something that you like actually enjoy doing.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And then the response is the actual act of meditating.
Right.
And to make the response easier,
Yeah.
you might start with short meditation sessions.
Okay.
Maybe just 5 or 10 minutes.
Right.
And then finally, you need a reward that reinforces the habit.
Okay.
So maybe it's enjoying a cup of tea afterwards.
Okay.
Or maybe it's simply acknowledging the sense of calm you feel after meditating.
Right. So it's like taking a moment to like appreciate that you did it.
Exactly. Yeah, how good you feel. Yeah, it's about acknowledging your accomplishment.
Okay, so we've got the cue, the craving, the response, and the reward.
Yeah.
Now, how does that apply to breaking a bad habit?
So breaking a bad habit is basically the same process,
Okay.
but in reverse.
Okay.
So, if you want to break a habit of, say, snacking late at night,
Okay.
you might remove the cues that trigger the craving.
Okay.
So, don't keep unhealthy snacks in the house.
Right.
You might replace the response with a healthier alternative.
Okay.
So instead of snacking,
Yeah.
drink a glass of water
Right.
or go for a walk.
So find something else
Yeah.
to do in that moment.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you might also focus on the negative consequences of the habit.
Okay.
So, like feeling sluggish the next day.
Right.
Or gaining weight.
To kind of like refrain it in your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like when you feel that urge, it's like, okay, but then I'm going to feel this way tomorrow.
Yeah.
So maybe I shouldn't do it.
Exactly.
Okay. So we've got to manipulate the cues. We've got to find like a different response.
Yeah.
And we've got to like think about the negative consequences.
Yeah. It's all about making the bad habit less appealing
Okay.
and the good habit more attractive.
I like that. Okay, so we're really kind of like
Yeah.
playing a strategic game with our brains here.
We are, yeah. We're hacking our habits.
Yeah. Okay.
And remember,
Yeah.
we don't have to be perfect.
Right.
It's a journey, not a destination.
Progress, not perfection.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Now, one of the things that like I think is really important when it comes to habits is tracking and measurement.
Absolutely. Yeah. Tracking is a great way to stay motivated and on track.
Well, and I think it's really helpful to like make it visual.
Yes, definitely. Whether it's a habit tracker,
Yeah.
a journal, a spreadsheet, like whatever works for you.
Right.
But find a way to like track your progress
Yeah.
and make it visual.
Because I think it's really easy to like, if you're not tracking it,
Yeah.
you kind of like lose sight of like how far you've come.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you're not really like giving yourself credit for like
yeah.
the wins.
Yeah. It's important to celebrate your wins no matter how small.
Yeah. And I think that that's like so key because,
Yeah.
a lot of times we're so focused on like the end goal that we forget to celebrate like the little milestones along the way.
Right. And those small wins, they build momentum.
Yeah.
They keep you motivated.
So, if you're trying to lose weight and you lose like 2 pounds,
Yeah.
celebrate that.
Yeah. Celebrate.
It's like that's 2 pounds closer to your goal.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's something to be proud of.
Yeah. And the more you celebrate those small wins,
Yeah.
the more motivated you'll be to keep going.
Okay, so we've got tracking.
Yeah.
Any other like things in this book that you want to touch on?
Well, I think we should definitely talk about some of the advanced techniques.
Oh, okay, advanced techniques. So we've gone through the basics.
Yeah, we've gone through the basics.
Now we're getting into like the ninja stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, the ninja stuff. So one of the techniques that James Clear talks about is the Goldilocks rule.
The Goldilocks rule. Okay, tell me about that.
So the Goldilocks rule is basically about finding the sweet spot of challenge.
Okay.
So your habits shouldn't be too easy.
Okay.
Or too difficult.
But just right.
But just right. Yeah.
Okay.
They should be challenging enough to keep you engaged.
Okay.
But not so challenging that you get overwhelmed.
Okay, so how do you find that sweet spot?
Well, it's a little bit of an experiment.
Yeah.
You need to like experiment with different habits.
Yeah.
And see what feels right for you.
Okay.
But there are a few things you can keep in mind.
Okay.
So first of all, you want to make sure that your habit is aligned with your goals.
Okay, so if your goal is to like lose weight, the habit shouldn't be like, eat a pint of ice cream every day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Second, you want to make sure that your habit is challenging enough to keep you engaged.
Right.
But not so challenging that you get discouraged.
So like if you hate running, don't like try to run a marathon.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And then third, you want to make sure that your habit is something you can do consistently.
Okay.
So, if you're trying to build a habit of working out every day.
Yeah.
But you only have time to work out 3 days a week. Yeah.
That's not going to work.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So you need to find a habit that fits into your lifestyle.
That you can actually like stick to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the Goldilocks rule.
Yeah.
What else is there?
Well, another advanced technique that James Clear talks about is environment design.
Okay.
Which we touched on earlier.
Yeah.
But it's worth emphasizing how powerful this can be.
Okay, so remind us again, what is environment design?
So environment design is basically about making your surroundings work for you.
Okay.
Not against you.
Okay.
So, we talked about how your environment is constantly sending you cues.
Right.
And those cues are either triggering good habits or bad habits.
Right.
So if you can control the cues, you can control your habits.
Okay.
So for example, if you're trying to eat healthier, get rid of the junk food in your house.
Right.
If you're trying to exercise more, make sure your gym clothes are laid out.
Yeah.
And your gym bag is packed.
So it's like eliminating any friction.
Exactly. Yeah, you're eliminating friction.
That would prevent you from doing it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then, you can also use your environment to create positive cues.
Okay.
So, if you want to read more, put a book on your bedside table.
Right.
If you want to play the guitar more, leave your guitar out in the living room.
Okay.
So, it's really about being intentional about your environment.
Right.
And making sure that it's supporting your goals.
Okay.
And this isn't just about our physical environment either. This also applies to our social environment.
Right. So the people that you surround yourself with.
Exactly. Yeah. The people you surround yourself with, the information you consume.
Yeah.
All of that has an impact on your habits.
So if you're trying to like make a change and you're surrounding yourself with people who are like not supportive of that change, it's going to be that much harder.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So we've got environment design, Goldilocks rule.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, I think those are like the main advanced techniques.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have, We've talked about the 4 laws, identity-based habits, the habit loop, environment design, Goldilocks rule.
Right. I mean, this is a lot of information.
It is, yeah.
So, like, what's the one thing that you hope our listeners take away from this?
I think the one thing I hope listeners take away from this is that building better habits is possible.
Okay.
And it's not always easy.
Right.
But it is possible.
Okay.
I think it's about being patient with yourself.
Yeah.
Trusting the process.
Yeah.
And using the tools and strategies that we've talked about today.
Right.
And I think, if you can do that, you can achieve anything you set your mind to.
Well, and I think it's important to remember that like everyone struggles with this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We all have bad habits.
Yeah.
We all want to improve.
Yeah.
And it's a journey.
Right.
It's not a destination.
Well, and I think it's helpful to like kind of like reframe the idea of failure too.
Yeah, absolutely. Failure is just feedback.
Right.
It's an opportunity to learn and grow.
And like if you mess up, it's not like the end of the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, okay, what can I learn from this?
Yeah.
What can I do differently next time?
Exactly.
Okay, well, this has been like a really
awesome
overview of atomic habits.
Yeah.
I feel like we've covered a lot of ground.
We have, yeah.
But I'm sure there's like still more.
Oh, yeah.
That we could dig into.
Absolutely.
So we'll have to have you back on to talk about this more.
I'd love that.
But we'll save that for another deep dive.
Yes.
So in the meantime, like what's one piece of advice that you would give our listeners who are like trying to build better habits?
I think the one piece of advice I would give is to start small.
Okay.
Don't try to change everything at once.
Right.
Just pick one small habit that you want to build.
Yeah.
And focus on that.
And master that before you move on to the next one.
Exactly. It's like you don't have to be perfect.
Right.
You just have to be consistent.
Okay.
And the more consistent you are, the more progress you'll make.
I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on this deep dive into atomic habits.
It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, we hope you enjoy us.
Yes.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
All right. Welcome back to the deep dive into atomic habits. I feel like every time we come back to this, we're like uncovering some new layer.
Yeah, it's one of those books you can revisit multiple times and still find new nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah, totally. And speaking of nuggets of wisdom, one of the things that just keeps coming back to me is this whole idea of environment design.
Oh yeah.
Like we've kind of hit on it a few times, but I feel like it deserves its own little spotlight here.
Absolutely. It really is a foundational piece of this whole puzzle.
Yeah, so like break it down for me again. Why is environment design so important?
Okay, so think of it this way, like our surroundings, right? They're constantly shaping our behavior,
right?
Whether we realize it or not.
They're kind of insidious almost.
It is. It's like this invisible force field that's either nudging us towards our goals or like subtly pulling us off course.
Right. And I think that's why it's so easy to fall back into bad habits.
Exactly.
Because if you haven't like addressed that environment,
yeah,
it's like those cues are still there.
They are. They're lurking in the shadows, just waiting to trip us up.
Yeah. So it's not just about like willpower or discipline.
No.
It's about like actually like setting yourself up for success.
Exactly. Yeah. Setting yourself up for success by like making those good habits the path of least resistance.
Right. So like give me a concrete example of this.
Okay. So let's say you're trying to like eat healthier, right?
Yeah.
But your kitchen is like stocked with like chips and cookies and all sorts of like tempting treats.
The forbidden fruit.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you're constantly like fighting this uphill battle.
Right. You're setting yourself up for failure almost.
Exactly. But if you like change that environment, right?
Yeah.
If you make those healthy choices more accessible, like keeping fruit on a counter, having like pre-cut veggies ready to go,
right?
Suddenly it's like way easier to reach for those nourishing options.
It's like you're making those like healthy choices the default.
Exactly. Yeah. You're making it the easy choice.
And our brains are wired to be lazy, so.
Oh, absolutely. Our brains love shortcuts.
We're going to take the path of least resistance pretty much every time.
Pretty much, yeah. So might as well make that path lead to somewhere good.
Okay, so we've talked about like the physical environment.
Yeah.
You've also mentioned like our social environment.
Yes, our social environment is huge. Like the people we surround ourselves with, they have a massive impact on our behavior.
Yeah, you know, I've definitely noticed that if I'm around people who are constantly like indulging in unhealthy habits,
yeah,
it's like so much harder for me to stay on track.
Absolutely. It's like we're social creatures by nature.
Right.
We tend to mimic the behaviors of those around us.
So like how do we kind of mitigate that? Like how do we create a social environment that's supportive?
I think it starts with being mindful of who you're spending your time with.
Okay.
Like, are you surrounding yourself with people who uplift you, who inspire you?
Right.
Or are you surrounding yourself with people who like drain your energy, who kind of bring you down?
And I think like a lot of people are afraid to like make changes to their social circle.
I know it could be tough, but sometimes it's necessary.
Yeah.
You know, you deserve to be surrounded by people who support your growth.
Right. And who like, you know, celebrate your wins with you.
Exactly. Yeah. Who celebrate your wins and who are there for you when you stumble.
And who like will call you out when you're not like doing what you said you were going to do.
Exactly. Accountability is key.
Okay. So we've talked about physical environment, social environment.
Yeah.
Is there anything else like environment wise that we need to be thinking about?
Yeah. You know, our information environment.
Okay. Information environment. Now this is a good one.
Yeah, it's huge these days, right?
Yeah.
Like the books we read, the podcasts we listen to, the social media accounts we follow.
Yeah.
All of that has like a subtle but powerful influence on our thoughts, feelings, and ultimately our actions.
Well, and I think it's so easy to get caught up in like the negativity, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like the doom scrolling, the news cycle.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it can be really toxic for our mental health.
So how do we create like a healthy information environment?
I think it starts with being really intentional about what we allow into our minds.
Okay.
You know, like, are we consuming content that inspires us?
Yeah.
That motivates us?
Right.
That supports our growth?
Okay, so it's like almost like doing a cleanse, like a digital cleanse.
Exactly. Unfollow those accounts that make you feel bad about yourself.
Right.
Unsubscribe from those newsletters that are just like filling your inbox with clutter.
Okay.
And then like actively seek out content that lifts you up.
Right. That aligns with like your values, your goals.
Exactly. Yeah. Follow people who inspire you, who are doing the things that you want to do.
So it's about like surrounding yourself with positivity, basically.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about like a lot of stuff here.
We have, yeah.
Like I feel like we've really gone deep.
Yeah, we've really kind of like uncovered the layers of this whole habit formation process.
So like if you had to like leave our listeners with like one key takeaway, what would it be?
I think it would be that don't underestimate the power of small, consistent actions.
Yeah, I love that.
Like it's so easy to get caught up in this idea of needing to make these massive changes overnight.
Yeah, the quick fix.
Exactly. But real lasting change, it happens gradually.
Right.
It happens one small step at a time.
One atomic habit at a time.
Exactly. So like don't get discouraged if you don't see results immediately.
Yeah.
Just keep showing up.
Right.
Keep putting in the work.
Progress, not perfection.
Exactly. Trust the process, and those small, consistent actions will eventually lead you to where you want to be.
I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure.
It's always so great to chat with you.
Likewise.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to this deep dive into atomic habits.
Yes, thank you for listening.
We hope you found it helpful and insightful.
We hope you learned a thing or two.
And most importantly, we hope you'll put these principles into practice and start building those atomic habits that will transform your life.
Absolutely. One small step at a time.
All right. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.
See you next time.